Welcome to the Miller Brothers podcast. My name is Jordan. That's my brother Eli on the other side of the screen, and we are excited to be doing this podcast. This is a sports-based podcast and a opinion-based podcast. Now, we happen to believe that we have the right opinion, but we're going to give our opinions nonetheless. So we're excited to be doing this. Hope you enjoy it. Let's get right into it. All right, Eli. So it's been a long time coming. Long time coming. We've been talking about doing this for several months now, and we finally bit the bullet and did it. And so, just going to jump into all things sports. Well, not all things sports. We're only going to talk about, mostly football, basketball, and baseball at most levels, and we might jump into some golf. And we'll definitely talk about the Olympics as they started this past weekend, as this is released. So I'm excited to do this. What do you think?
Yeah, dude, I'm pumped. We're not the Kelsey brothers, but we'll make it work.
Nobody's the Kelsey brothers, and not quite frankly, I don't want to be the Kelsey brothers.
Facts.
I prefer not to date Taylor Swift, considering that I'm married. But never mind. Well, we won't get into that. That's not what we're here for. So, anyway, college football. I mean, we're getting closer and closer. I mean, we're less than a month out, right at a month out.
Yep.
And a lot of things happening. SEC Media Days were last week, Big Ten this week. I think the ACC and Big 12 still need to meet. We'll talk about Group of Five as we get closer to the season and talk about that. But we're going to focus on the Power Four. It's weird not saying Power Five anymore, but
yeah,
the Conference of Champions just don't exist anymore. So I guess they weren't really champions at all. Anyway, I digress. Did you pay much attention to the SEC Media Days?
Yeah, got big into it. Heard every coach speak to try to see the roster breakdown, roster turnover. A lot of new guys coming in, a lot of teams bringing in some transfers and some freshmen that are really going to be some game changers. You got a few teams in there with brand new head coaches, and so it'll be different. You add Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC as well. Sarkisian coming off a playoff year when they technically should have beat Washington, just to let that game get slip out of their hands. You bring in Oklahoma, who's been kind of middle of the pack lately. Haven't been great, haven't been overpowering, but they're joining the SEC with a breath of fresh air, some new blood coming to the league to make it more competitive. So it was definitely a good week, a productive week, it felt like, for most teams. I got to hear a lot from different coaches. So it's going to be an exciting time in the SEC this year. A lot of really good teams, a lot of really good players. So we'll watch it and see how it breaks down.
Yeah, it was not a week without controversy. They made a big deal about Alabama, about Nick Saban not picking Alabama to win the SEC. He's a media guy. He's going to tell the truth. He's told the truth pretty much his whole career. So,
he's also not going to ride high on Alabama just leaving there either. It's like, of course, I just came from there. I'm not, but he has his own perceptions about the team. He knows more about that team than anybody else does, other than Kalen DeBoer. So I mean, he's around. He knows. He hears things. He has his own expectations. He's just not going to share that with everybody.
Oh yeah. Well, they just named the field after him. He's still got an office in the building. So, I mean, he's obviously going to have a say, and he obviously is going to, give input where he wants to and when he wants to. But he's going to try to be fair and balanced, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, what do you think about Alabama going into this year?
I see them 10, maybe 11 games that they'll win. I think they'll make the playoff. I'm not sure what number they'll be. It just depends on how the rest of the country plays out. But I see them top 5 going into the playoffs. I say top 5. If they win the SEC, they'll definitely be top 4. But they'll be in that 5 to 7 range for sure. I think the only loss that I would just say right this minute that I would think they have a 100% chance of losing, 100%, most confident about, I guess I should say, is the Georgia game. I think Georgia's going to be on another level. They lost Brock Bowers. They lost a couple of other players, but Kirby just seems to bring them right back to where they need to be. So I don't think they'll beat Georgia, but I think they'll beat just about everybody else on their schedule. I think bringing Jalen Milroe back, obviously a Heisman candidate and a Heisman favorite, I think bringing him back on offense, Jam Miller's going to be in the backfield with him. He's going to have a really good year. So I see Alabama having a really good season post Nick Saban. They won't be as dominant. They may not blow people out. They may sneak by a couple of teams, but 10 to 11, 10 or 11 games is where I see them at this year. What about you?
I don't. We talked about this previously off camera, but I think I'm just at the point now with the SEC. It's either put up or shut up. You're gonna have to show me. You're gonna have to show me. I mean, everybody has been high on Texas A&M for the last 5 years. Jimbo Fisher proved nothing. Now they got Mike Elko coming in from Duke. I mean, what's he? He's been a coordinator everywhere. He's been a successful coordinator, and he did fine at Duke. But it's put up, shut up. And I think Kalen DeBoer is he's gonna have to prove it because he has not coached in the SEC grind yet. Yeah, he came from Washington. He had a fantastic season. All credit to him and Michael Penix and all of them. But he's going to have to prove it. I'm right now. I'm in the point where SEC, Auburn included, you're going to have to show me. I don't know if he's ready to coach in the SEC grind because it's out west in the old Pac-12. You could you could get away with only getting up for 2 or 3 games, those big games. Like he beat Oregon twice last year. He didn't have to get up for Washington State and teams like that because they weren't on the same level. Different athletes, different coaching staffs, different schemes and everything. So I'm interested to see. He's got the talent. He didn't lose a ton, and the ones he did lose, he just replaced them. So I don't know if he's going to be able to wear the crown, as they say. I mean, heavy is the head that wears the crown. I don't think he'll be able to. He's going to have to show me, and I don't think he's going to do it this year. They
Where
might.
do you
I
see
think
them
they'll get
as
8 or 9
wins?
games.
Yeah.
Do it. They'll get 8 or 9 games, but I don't. If they make the playoff, it'll be a higher seed. But I don't think they're going to beat Georgia. I'd be surprised if they were to beat Texas. They don't play Oklahoma.
They don't play Texas this year.
Do they play Oklahoma?
No. Wait, yeah, they do. They get Oklahoma the week before they play Auburn.
Oh wow.
They go on the road to Wisconsin, but that shouldn't be too hard. I'm not high on Wisconsin.
Nah, Wisconsin's in a massive
If
rebuild.
you're looking for teams to beat them, it would be Tennessee when they play them at Neyland.
Yeah, but
And they play Missouri, but they play them in Bryant-Denny. Like those are the teams. If you say they're going to win 8 or 9 games, then you got to look at the teams that you think can beat them. And there's not that many on their schedule that I personally believe can beat Alabama with the talent that they have.
Yeah. I mean, all due respect to Missouri, but I don't think they're going to win. I mean, you look at this SEC Media Day, and outside of the top 3, I mean, it's tough. Outside of top 3, who do they? I mean, Tennessee and Oklahoma are lower than Ole Miss, LSU, and Missouri.
You're good with Alabama being at number 3, but number 3 in the SEC is probably going to be a two-loss team. So if you've got them at 8 wins, you can't have them at 3.
Well, yeah, but we don't know what Ole Miss is going to show up. We don't know what Lane Kiffin's going to do because they've got Golding as a defensive coordinator, and he's terrible as a defensive coordinator.
Yep.
I mean, he has not. When Alabama's worst defense when he was the defensive coordinator.
But that's what I'm saying.
They were the worst, and he's at Ole Miss, where Ole Miss has never. Going to the Houston Nut days, they never had a good defense. It's always been all offense, and then you go to Hugh Freeze, and then the bums after him, and then you come to Lane Kiffin, and it's all offense. So if they're not hanging 60, they're not winning.
But that's what I'm saying.
And
that's
so
why
they're going to lose.
Alabama. That's what I'm talking about. Alabama going to win 10 or 11 games. But you're saying outside of the top 3, who's going to challenge them? Well, all those teams that aren't going to challenge them means they're not going to beat Alabama, which puts Alabama at 10 or 11 games.
Right. Well, I'm saying Ole Miss, LSU, and Missouri. I don't trust them to be a top 6 team in the SEC. Tennessee and Oklahoma, maybe. I'm really surprised more people.
I don't think Jackson Arnold. I think they'll win 8 games. First year in the SEC, and see, Texas will probably finish top of the league, but I'm with Nick Saban. They're not going to dominate the SEC.
I don't think so.
They're not gonna dominate teams like Georgia and Alabama when they play them. I don't even think they'll dominate LSU. I don't think that they'll just walk. They're not gonna walk the dog like with teams like they did in the Big 12. I mean, the only team on this list that I say that they could just play head to head. I mean, home field advantage is kind of different, but the only team I say that they could play and walk the dog with is Vanderbilt. And by walk the dog, I mean beat them by 30. They're not beating any of these teams by 30 other than Vanderbilt. They may beat South Carolina and Arkansas and Florida by multiple scores, but they're not going to beat them by 30. And I'm not even saying they play those teams. I don't even know. Like, I'm not even familiar like deep with their schedule. I'm just saying with the SEC teams that they play, if they played all 15 other SEC teams, the only team I think that they could absolutely blow out is Vanderbilt, maybe
Yeah,
Mississippi State,
and
because it's
Mississippi
just
State's
different.
terrible. Arkansas probably. Arkansas is
Yeah,
down a lot.
it's just
I mean,
different.
I know they've done a lot of recruiting and stuff lately, but Arkansas, what's it? Pittman, is that his name?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. I don't. He should have been fired last year, to be quite honest with you. He's been there almost 6 7 years now, and they
Mm.
had a season like they did last year where they won only what, like they only won 4 maybe 5 games.
Yeah, he saved his job though by hiring Petrino as his head coach or his offense coordinator.
Yeah, but
That's exactly
Petrino's
what that was. That was
80.
a play to the crowd to give him more time. And now if it doesn't work, he'll be fired because Arkansas
Yeah,
fans love Bobby Petrino.
isn't
And
he
if it
like
doesn't work
60,
out,
70 years old now?
he's old, but he he knows what he's doing around an offense. So if their offense is not, I mean, they got a 6'4" quarterback in Taylor Green. I mean, he wanted him. He went and got him last year. So he's got his quarterback that he wants. It's an athletic beast that can sling it. I mean, he's got a good arm. I mean, I don't know how accurate he'll be, but he can run. So, I mean, if he doesn't win
He's a
eight
good
games, he'll be
athlete.
fired. I don't think 7-5 is going to cut it for him unless they beat some good teams.
Yeah, but him, South Carolina and Florida, uh,
Yep.
Napier and Beamer. You said it. You said it off camera, but they're on the hot seat.
Yeah, they all have to win 8 or more games, and they'll probably all 3 get fired, depending on who they beat. If Napier goes 7-5, they may keep him around. But I think Carolina's getting a little, or South Carolina's getting tired of Beamer talking a big game and then not producing on the field. So if they win 8 games, all 3 will keep their job. If they lose, if they all 3 win 6 games, they're all 3 getting fired, no doubt in my mind.
Oh
Unless one of
yeah.
them pulls off some crazy win,
Look, I
and they
think
don't have any bad losses.
I wouldn't be surprised if Arkansas gave grace to Pittman if he won 8 games.
If he wins 8 games, and that's what I'm saying. All 3 of them, if all 3 of them win 8 games, they'll all 3 be the head coach next year. If they all 3 win 6 games, they'll all 3 get fired.
Yeah, yeah. I think if they win, I mean, I'd probably go as far to say if they win, Arkansas wins 7 games, Pittman keeps his job
Depending
because
on who he beats.
they had 2 such bad years. I mean, since COVID, Arkansas has really just been bad.
Yeah, it
They've
just
just
depends
been
on who he
bad.
beats though, and who he loses to, and how
Right.
bad he loses
And
to them.
I honestly don't understand why Kentucky's not ahead of Auburn and Texas A&M, other than recruiting. I mean,
Mm,
Auburn was 6-8 last year, 7-8, 6-8.
there's a lot to be seen about Kentucky. Brock Vandagriff's the new quarterback. Um,
I mean, did they
so
lose a lot of talent
Gary's
from last
gone.
year?
I, I don't know that they lost a lot, but they lost enough. And with Kentucky's got a tougher schedule than usual. But I mean, Vandagriff's going to have to prove himself. He came from Georgia. Their defense is usually solid. They usually are able to run the football. But this is a time for Auburn to really show what they can do. I mean, they play Georgia on the road, they play Bama on the road, Missouri on the road. But you dodge Ole Miss, you dodge LSU, you play Oklahoma and A&M. But if I went through Auburn's schedule, I know we're switching it to Auburn now, but if you went through Auburn's schedule, they'll lose to Georgia, they'll lose to Alabama. They're both on the road. They haven't beaten Georgia in Athens since I don't even
2003.
yeah, and they haven't beaten Bama and Bryant Denny since Cam Newton played, and they were down by 4 scores in that game. So they're not, and they don't have a once in a lifetime team to go into either one of those places and win this year. Um, they'll play Kentucky on the road. I think they could beat them. It just doesn't. They'll play Missouri on the road, and from my point of view, right now they lose to Missouri. Missouri returns like 9 guys on defense and 8 on offense, including their starting quarterback and Luther Burden, and most, if not all, of their offensive line. Luther Burden is going to be an all conference player, maybe the best wide receiver in the conference this year if he stays healthy. And so that's
Yeah,
another loss. I mean, if you're Auburn, you host Arkansas and you host Oklahoma and you host Texas A&M, you would ideally like to win all 3 of those games. And you host
right.
Vanderbilt. If you win all 4 of your home games and then you go undefeated in non-conference games, that's 8 wins right there, with your losses being to Kentucky, Missouri, Alabama, and Georgia. And if you pull off the Kentucky win, you're 9-3. You're sitting happy because all 3 of those teams you lost to are going to finish top 15 in the country.
Yeah,
Two of
I
those are
literally
going to
think
make the playoff. Bama and Georgia will both make the playoff. Missouri will be on right there on the outside because Missouri has a decent schedule to make the playoff. They can win 10 games based on who they play. Two of those losses
yeah.
being
Well,
Georgia and Alabama. If they play
I
Georgia, I'm
really
not.
think I really think all of Auburn's success is going to come down to quarterback, as it does with every team,
Yep.
most teams. I mean, they put last year it was he didn't have the receivers. They went out and got 7 5 stars, and
That's what it feels like.
I'm convinced they gave out a bunch of NIL money,
Oh
and
yeah.
they're sticking with Peyton Thorne. Sticking with Peyton Thorne. Peyton Thorne can't hit the broadside of a barn if it was standing in front of him and slapping him and saying, "Hey, I'm the side of a barn." I mean, he's that bad in my opinion. I think I could lead Auburn to a 7-5 record. I mean, I'm good at handing the ball off. I bet I could escape a 300-pound lineman sometimes. I mean, literally, I mean, that's arrogant to say probably, but like I can throw the ball 40 yards down the field and miss a receiver just like he can. Pay me hundreds of thousands of dollars to come be
See,
your college quarterback.
the difference for this year's team than last year's team with dealing with the receivers is there was no separation. You weren't Jay Fair, and I mean Rivaldo Fairweather was the only one really catching the football. Jay Fair, Javarius Johnson, Cam Brown, these dudes weren't getting any separation, and when they were,
That's true.
Peyton couldn't hit them. So this year, you go get Keandre Lambert Smith, which was one of the top receivers in the portal. You got him from Penn State. You get Robert Lewis from Georgia State. He's going to be a possession guy. And then you go get Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, Bryce Kane, and Malcolm Simmons. I don't know how much of Malcolm Simmons you'll see, and I don't know how much you'll see of those freshmen. But bringing in Cam Coleman and then Camden Brown coming back, who's going to be another deep threat, he's going to have the guys. Bring in Rivaldo back as well. Mike O'Reilly out of that tight end room. You bring back Frazier. No, it wasn't Frazier. Luke Dill. You bring all those guys. Those guys can catch the football. If he can't get it to him, then you realize, okay, it's the quarterback. There's no more excuses because they've bolstered the offensive line. The running back room is just as elite as it was last year. You're bringing all three of your backs back. Brian Battie, prayers to him for the tragedy that happened when he got shot in the head. But and I mean he's recovering. He's walking again with a cane. So like that's good to hear. So like other than him, you bring back everybody else that ever touched the ball with Austin, Jeremiah Cobb, and Jarquez Hunter. And so you've got everything, and you bring in the receivers. So there it is. It's all on Peyton Thorne. And if he doesn't produce, okay, put him on the bench. Here comes Holden Garner and Hank Brown. Walker White will get his turn in a couple of years. He's supposed to be really good. I think he will be. He's a 4-star quarterback who can sling it and he can run a little bit. So they've got everything that they need on that side. Defense will be better, or I say better. They weren't bad last year. They'll do well this year as well with Charles Kelly splitting his duties back there, and then Derek
Yeah,
Nix
but
on the offensive side. That's another thing that people aren't talking about. Derek Nix is Hugh Freeze's guy. That's Hugh Freeze's
yep,
dude. He knows what Hugh Freeze wants. Hugh Freeze knows what Nix is going to do, and Nix has his play. Running backs and receivers especially, like that receiving core for Ole Miss had like 3 or 4 guys over 800 or 700 yards last year. That's Derek Nix. So the complaint was about receivers last year. You brought in a guy that could coach him, and you brought in more that could play. Now it's on your quarterback, and that's really where it's at. Peyton Thorne is going to be the deciding factor on if Auburn wins 6 or 7 games or 9 games. I
yeah,
don't see him winning 10.
and it was partially on the receivers. I will give him that because there was a lot of drop passes last year that should have been caught. I'll give him that. But there were several times there was a little bit of separation.
Oh
The
yeah,
Division One SEC quarterback should be hitting. He wasn't hitting, and so he's going to have to prove a lot. I think Cal and Oklahoma are going to give him a lot. And we also got that quarterback turned receiver from
Cal
Cal Jackson.
Rob.
So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I could spend all day talking about Auburn, but
Yeah, but that's always going to happen, and I don't really apologize for it.
I don't either.
Yeah,
But the biggest thing for Auburn defense, I don't think the defense will probably be as good as it was last year. Just losing a lot on the back end. I
you
mean,
lose
the
a lot in
Seattle
the
Seahawks
secondary, but
drafted
they
the
had a lot of
entire back.
freshmen. A lot of
Yeah,
freshmen
I
got a
mean
lot of time last year.
that's true. But I mean, your seniors or your upperclassmen the Seattle Seahawks go and draft all of them. It
Yeah.
seems like, and I mean, you get to the point where I mean, we're just gonna have to see these first 5 games
The
at home.
linebacker room will be stout.
Yeah,
Eugene Asante is going to be an all-conference player, probably first team if he stays healthy. That D-line, they've filled in some holes down there. Keldrick Fox probably going to have a breakout year in
I
his
think
sophomore
so.
year. He had a really good freshman season. So if they can get pressure on the quarterback to kind of take the pressure off the back end, but if they can't get pressure on the quarterback, it might be a long year, especially in the passing game. But we will see.
If we get to another 4th and 30 situation and they don't blitz the stinking quarterback, who's not gonna run for it, I
Yeah.
will lose my lid, Eli. I
Yep.
will go to Auburn, Alabama from Virginia Beach, Virginia, and I will stand outside and protest the defensive coordinator. I don't even remember who the old one is. I know we got 2 new ones, but I will protest these defensive coordinators because I am tired of it. This is going to be held over our head like we keep holding the kick six over their head.
Yeah, I'm done with that.
I'm
It was
done
the
with it,
greatest
dude.
ending to ever to a college football game, but it's been 11 years, so I
Yeah,
think it's time to
but
retire for the most part.
mark my words, if if we get in a 4th and long situation where they have to throw the ball and we don't blitz the quarterback, I will lose my lid.
Yeah, one more thing to add before we move on. Freeze hired Kent Austin, who used to work with him. Big quarterback guy. I think Peyton Thorne will take strides just because there's so much trust within that offensive room between Kent, Derek Nix, and then Hugh himself. So I believe all three of them are going to be on the same page, and I think you will see a stride in the offense. He might not be what everybody wants him to be, but if he's good enough, if he
If
plays,
he
if he's mediocre, a mediocre Peyton
right,
Thorne can win 8 games with this offense. And I'm not saying
if
we
he
have
can
these
get,
crazy weapons. I just believe, like, if he just gives us an option to throw the football, we'll be fine because I think we're going to run it a lot.
I agree. And if the offensive line is as good as they're saying it is, if we can get the, if he can, let's just say, if he can get around a 65% completion rating with over 2,000 yards, I would be happy.
Yeah, just keep
I would be
holding the
happy.
football too. We just don't need to turn it over.
Right, no turnovers.
All right.
Anyway, you've been paying attention to the Big Ten. I know their media days were this week, but I
I
mean,
didn't
well,
really
it's
watch
not the
much
Big Ten.
about the Big Ten. I mean, we both saw the coach from UCLA give his more than strange opening statement. Didn't have a paper. He just kind of went up there and yapped and didn't have much to say. So when you go up there without any plans to talk or anything written down, kind of tough to give a opening statement. So that was kind of weird. But that's about all I took from the Big Ten Media Day. But if you want
I
to look,
mean, literally, this is what all we've done for the podcast, for this bootleg podcast that we're doing, and you're telling me the guy who's getting paid millions of dollars to coach these Division I athletes out on the West Coast can't take a piece of paper this big right here and go up and and just have a few remarks, just like, "Hey, we're excited for the year. I'm excited to get my for us to compete, ready for these guys to get in our system, and we're going to compete at the highest level in this new conference. Now we'll take questions."
yeah.
It's not that hard.
But I mean, looking at the Big Ten though, you're really going to look at what everybody's talking about is Ohio State. Bringing probably not even probably, the most talented roster Ryan Day's had since he's been there. You got Will Howard coming in to play quarterback. You got Quinshawn Judkins in the backfield. We look at, we talk about Heisman favorites. Will Howard is on that list, but the Heisman favorites, the top 6 are all quarterbacks. So then this is when you look at, okay, what running backs could be added to that list by their play this year? Judkins is one of those guys. He was really good
I
at Ole
agree.
Miss under Lane Kiffin. They're going to be able to throw the ball with Will Howard at quarterback. So running the football is going to be a part of that game too. And Judkins is not going to have to carry as much of the load. And he carried a lot of the load last year, but Jackson Dart did a really good job throwing the football for Ole Miss. So him coming to Ohio State, you got Caleb Downs on the defensive side of the ball. Like there's a lot of weapons around there. They lose Marvin Harrison Jr., but I think they're going to be okay. So Ohio State, it's their division, it's their conference to lose. I believe that Michigan's going to be down. Sharon Moore's there; he's going to do a good job. But that's an 8-9 win Michigan team. So if Ryan Day loses to Michigan again and loses or wins less than 10 games, he will be fired. I think a 93 season with a loss to Michigan gets Ryan Day fired, because this is a playoff roster and this is a national championship roster, and if he doesn't even sniff that, it's over for him.
Yeah.
So them, and then you've got Oregon. They just brought Dylan Gabriel in to play quarterback. They lose Bo Nix to the draft. A couple of other weapons on offense go to the draft. A lot of guys got drafted from that roster, but Dan Lanning's sitting pretty there in the Big Ten. I think it's between those two teams.
Yeah, everybody is saying, everybody I'm hearing is saying Oregon. And a lot of this conversation is Ryan Day's got to prove himself again. And that's what I'm hearing a lot of, and out of Ohio State again. But a lot of people are saying Oregon because, I mean, you go from Bo Nix to Dylan Gabriel. I literally think that's a lateral step. I mean, it's literally, I don't think there'll be any kind of drop off there. And in that system, it's hard to be a failure if you're accurate.
Yeah.
If you can make a 10 to 15 yard throw, less than a 15-yard throw, let me put it that way, less than 15 yards, if you can make that accurate, at least if you can hit those 70% of the time, you're going to be successful. Now, you got to hit the deep ball every once in a while to keep the defense honest, but if you can hit a 15-yard throw with accuracy 70, 75% of the time, you're going to be successful. And that's the offense that Oregon runs. And I think Dylan Gabriel is going to be able to do that. Now, like you said, they lost a lot. Bo had some good chemistry with some of those guys. He grew up with one, I forget the guy's name. He grew up with him in Alabama. But, I mean, literally, it's going to be Oregon, Ohio State. Now you got the top six, just Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Michigan, Iowa, USC. Outside of that, the rest of them, the last 12,
I don't expect
they're
USC to do much
mediocre.
here. They're at 6, and that's a good spot for them. But USC's not going to do much. Penn State is going to be the same as they always have been, and that's, we're going to give you opportunity to ruin Ohio State's season, or ruin whoever. Like, they're there to ruin somebody's season. They're not going to win the Big Ten. They're just not, and they're not going to make the playoff unless they beat those teams. They could beat those teams, but then they'll turn around and play Illinois and go to 4 overtimes and lose the game. And that's what they've been. That's who they will be. And so Penn State will be there to ruin somebody's season. But I don't think Michigan is going to be as good. 8 to 9, like I said, not 8 to 9 wins. They do bring back their quarterback. No, they don't. J.J. McCarthy went to the draft. I think Donovan Edwards is back though, I believe. And so he'll be there to lead that team. But Corum's gone as well. So Michigan losing a lot of guys, losing their head coach. Sherrone Moore, like I said, is going to do fine stepping in, but not a playoff team this year. I don't see them beating Ohio State. It's going to be in the shoe this year. Ryan Day's got a lot to prove. Those guys have a lot to prove. So I think Ohio State wins the Big Ten, and that's me.
And Ryan Day also went and hired Chip Kelly.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, hiring Chip Kelly was a job saver. I feel like I was desperate, but Chip Kelly was ready to get out of UCLA. I think you've said it previously. He's not. He ran his course there, and it just didn't work out. Sometimes it doesn't do that, and that's fine. But he's going to be an offensive coordinator in the Big Ten. And the Big Ten, it's not as deep as it used to be. Now, more teams, but not on the same level. I mean, literally, Ohio State's number 1, Purdue is number 18. Purdue's not even what it was 5-6 years ago before COVID. I mean, they're not even that close. And then you had the 4 West Coast teams. Let's try to stay off that topic. I'm just going to let it be known. I think it's stupid that West Coast teams are playing in the Big Ten and the ACC. I think it's stupid. It's a waste of money. It hurts the smaller sports like tennis, sometimes golf, sports like that where you can't. It's like 6 or 7 people and they're having to fly commercial and they're not getting in till 3 or 4 in the morning because they had to go compete in the middle of the snow in Ohio. Now they got to fly back out to California. That's stupid. Anyway, that's enough of that. But it's just going to be weird. Like, Ohio State's got to go to Oregon this year. I think Oregon wins that game and I think the biggest factor is probably going to be the time difference. And they're going to come out sluggish because they're going to be they're going to have jet lag. And that game's going to be at, like, I imagine that game will probably be late Eastern Standard Time, but there's a 3-hour time difference.
8:30, or they'll say probably 8:30 on the East Coast. So you'll see a 5:30, maybe 6 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah, and they won't get back to Ohio. They won't get back to Ohio till like 4 or 5 in the morning unless they decide to wait till Sunday to come back.
Yep.
And so that kind of stuff, it's going to hurt the kids in the long run.
Yeah. It's all about money.
But like Iowa's going to be Iowa. They're going to play
Yep.
defense. I think they're trying to bolster up the offense, but that's not their focus. Their focus
With
is
McNamara
defense.
there. Used to be at
Yeah,
Michigan.
I, yeah. So they're gonna. I mean, they're trying to improve the offense, but it's not anyway. And then USC. I mean, probably the only thing I agree with Paul Feinbaum is that Lincoln Riley needs to go.
Yeah, he's
He
ducking a
fled
lot
the
of smoke right
SEC.
now.
Yeah, he fled the SEC and has done nothing. Caleb Williams helped him out a lot, but he didn't. He doesn't win. He does no defense whatsoever. I mean,
Yeah.
they're already calling for Deion Sanders to replace him in some media outlets, but Deion hasn't proven anything at this level yet. So
Yeah, but he's
it's
only
going to
had
be
1 year.
interesting to see. Do it now.
I said Dion's only been there 1 year, so we'll see.
Well, yeah, but he's turned it over again. It's
Yeah,
another roster turnover.
yeah, it feels like it's back to year one again for him. Bringing in new guys. It was an experiment last year, did not work, so he's really going to have to go to work this year. I looked at their schedule. Off bat, you go when you're talking about them and you hear what they say and all the things, just like, okay, y'all are going to win 5 or 6 games again this year, mediocre. Well, you look at their schedule, it's favorable. He could get out of there with 8 wins. It just depends on how their defense will be and if their offensive line decides they know how to block somebody, which at this moment in time, they don't. And if you can't protect your money, which is your quarterback, to throw to your other bag of money, your wide receiver and Travis Hunter, you're not going to win very many games because they're going to be standing on the sideline hurt. So they got to
Yep.
figure out if they can block, and give Shadur Sanders an opportunity to run that offense. People are just going to have to live with them running their mouth because that's what they do. It's in the blood, the Sanders
Yep.
blood. I mean, Deion's been that way since he played. You can't fault him for being himself. Sometimes I wish he'd hush, but it's okay. Win games and it doesn't matter. Like if he wins, it doesn't matter. I think the
Yep.
reason that it's such a big problem is they're talking like they're winners. Now Deion's a winner. Deion himself is a winner, but his son hasn't proven that on this stage. So,
Yep.
the game's going to be circled. Shadur said it. He's like, we're going to get everybody's A game. Our game is circled on their schedule. It's not because they're a proven powerhouse. It's because they've run
They're
their mouth.
talking. Yep.
So, back it up. You'll get everybody's respect. Nobody respects them because they haven't backed it up yet.
Yeah, I think you're right with saying Deion needs to back it up. I think they're at a point where it's shut up, put up or shut up. And I mean, looking at the Big 12, kind of looks like a Group of Five conference right now. I mean, it's probably people are going to take that as disrespect, and I know some people are going to get mad at me for saying that, but like they literally, yeah, Houston, UCF, BYU, and I'm leaving two other because I think there was
Imagine.
5 schools like 2 years ago that were in a Group of Five conference. And then now they're in the Big 12, which is supposed to Power 4 instead of Power 5 now. But I mean, it's literally the Big 12, and they've got 16 teams, Big 10, 18 teams, and it's just a crazy world we live in. But it's crazy that he could make a good run in the Big 12 because the Big 12 with Texas and Oklahoma gone, not anything.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Utah. They bring back Cam Rising and a talented team. They could win. I'm looking at UCF. I don't always have big hopes for Gus just because we've seen what he's done with rosters like the one he has. But he hit the portal hard. He got his quarterback, KJ Jefferson, 6'3", 240, 50, whatever he is, 6'4", maybe. I think he may be 6'4", 6'5". But that's the quarterback. We saw what he did with Cam Newton. He had a running quarterback in Nick Marshall. He does really well with a running quarterback that can throw it a little bit. And so if KJ comes in and they really really hone in on the offense and they get some stops on defense, they really could make a push because, like we said, the Big 12, I mean, it opens the door with Oklahoma and Texas gone for teams like Kansas State, teams like Oklahoma State. That's another team you got to think about. Oklahoma State with Mike Gundy, they're going to be able to make a push. Neil Brown at West Virginia, one of his most talented rosters he's had since he's been there, and they're ready for him to win. If he doesn't win this year, he'll be fired. So he's going to come in with a different aspect and a different kind of way he's playing games. He's going to be a little more aggressive with trying to win. And so I think you'll see West Virginia finish top 5 or 6. But those are the teams that you have to look out for. Utah, I think, will be the betting favorite. Like if you're a betting person, I think that'll be the team that everybody hits hard. And then, of course, you're going to see Colorado just because of Dion and Shadur and Travis Hunter. Those will be the two teams that get bet on the most. But then you look at teams that, have a chance to come up behind them and sneak up on them. And that's your Oklahoma State, your Kansas State. I don't think they'll be that good. Your Iowa States, like you just got to look at those teams. Baylor, I don't think they're going to be very good. They haven't really been very, but they'll be tough. Like those will be the teams that challenge you. And if those are your challenging teams, I mean, welcome to the 11 win club, Colorado. The 10 win club. If you can beat those teams, and so that's why I say Utah. Look out for UCF. But other than that, I don't really see much coming out of the Big 12. They won't have the college football champion this year. It's going to come from the ACC or the SEC. Maybe the Big 10 of Ohio State knows what they're doing in Oregon.
I feel like Ohio State and Oregon are for sure going to get in.
Yeah.
If they can get one or two losses, they'll both be in. They'll put a Big 12 team in, and they're going to
put the
put one
champion.
in.
The champion automatically gets in. It just
Right.
depends
I mean,
on who
I'm
that
saying
is.
they're going to put one additional to that. I mean, if West Virginia goes 10-2, 11-1, they're getting in for sure. But
Yeah.
just because of the money and the politics behind it, and literally, it's you got Utah, Houston, Colorado. Houston was in the Pac-12, but Cincinnati, UCF, BYU, they were all in Group of 5 not too long ago.
Yeah.
And so the Big 12, not looking that big right now. It's wide open. I really think it's wide open. We'll see what Baylor can do, but it's going to be interesting to see how everything shakes up. Now the ACC is what's going to be really interesting.
Yeah,
I think
I
it's
see a lot of
probably
movement there.
it's probably the most intriguing one that we're going to have this year because at the top, who's at the top right now?
I mean, I see FSU. I don't really know how they'll look, but I think they'll probably win the conference, or they'll at least be up at the top 3 to make the playoff. I think Mike Norvell, he's a really, really, really good head coach. He's a really good football coach. I think that you'll see them at the top half of that league, top 2 or 3. I think he's going to have them ticked off and ready to play after what happened and getting left out of the playoff. I think that they'll be ready. I think you look at Clemson. Dabo has his guys. We all know the controversy about him not wanting to hit the portal and his opinions on that. So he's got his guys. He's got Cade Klubnik coming back. He loses Will Shipley to the draft, but he's got a lot of guys coming up. His defense will be pretty good. So that's a team you look at. And then you go after you move past those two teams, the two teams that I personally think you should see is Miami, and you look at NC State. Miami brought in Cam Ward, probably a top 3 quarterback in the portal. He may have been the best one athletically and skill wise. You bring him in, you bring Damian Martinez in from Oregon State, who ran the ball really well for them in the Pac 12 last year. So there's your backfield. And then it just depends on how your athletes are around and then how that defense is. Cristobal is going to have a good O line. That's who he is. So I believe that I think Miami could run the table. I think that'll be a surprise team. I say surprise. I don't really know how everybody's talking about them, where they look, but that's a surprise team. A team that wasn't very good the last couple of years. Everybody saw the Georgia Tech play. He's known for that last year when he should have just sat on the ball, run the clock out. He ends up fumbling on a run. They throw for a touchdown and lose that game. So that's another guy that if they're not successful, it's another head coach that could be on his way out.
Mm-hmm.
Then we talked about after Miami, I said you look at NC State. They bring in McCall from Coastal. They've got some nice receivers around him. They didn't have a bad year last year. They finished off pretty well, I'm pretty sure. I think they finished the season pretty well. They beat Carolina, which is what they wanted to do. And so anytime
they got a tough. I mean, two of their first 4 games are going to be tough. You got Western Carolina first, and then you got Tennessee. Is that at home or is that
Tennessee
neutral
is
site?
I'm pretty sure that it has NC State listed as the home team. I believe it's a home game. I believe.
There's an asterisk next to it on ESPN.
Okay, then it's going to be a neutral site.
Probably a neutral site. And then,
but that's a game.
You got Louisiana Tech and then Clemson.
And they've got Clemson on the road in Death
Clemson
Valley.
on the road, and it literally
that's the 2 losses that I see. Like when you look at their schedule, you see Clemson. You play Tennessee at a neutral site. and then you see Clemson on the road, and then you look at the rest of their schedule, and you're like, okay, if Grayson McCall does what Grayson McCall has done at Coastal every year leading up to this, and then their defense just bunkers down, that's a 10-win team, and they honestly could beat Clemson.
Yeah.
It's another one of those sneaky teams that nobody's going to talk about. And then when they're at the end of the year at 10-2, or maybe even a chance to play for the ACC championship, and then it's there for them. Their schedule is favorable for a 10-win season.
Yeah. But I mean, if NC State wants to get a fair shake, they're gonna have to beat either Tennessee or Clemson. They're gonna have to
Yeah, you have to win one of
because
those.
UNC is gonna be
Unless you
down
make
this year.
the ACC championship game and win. Like, unless they win their league, those two games, you got to win one of them. And if they beat Clemson and then don't lose again, they'll be in the ACC championship game anyway. And they might be there anyways because there's no divisions anymore.
Right. But
So.
I mean, it's literally after Clemson, it's Northern Illinois, Wake Forest, Syracuse. So those should be easy games because Wake Forest has lost everybody. They lost all their fifth years and all that. And then they have to go to California. That could be a trip up game because California is trending upward. They lost a few guys in the portal, but they're trending upward. But it being in Cal, which I've already ranted about that, stupid.
Yeah.
But they've already ranted about that, and then they got Stanford at home, Duke at home, and they go to Georgia Tech and UNC. And Georgia Tech, I feel like Georgia Tech's going to be Georgia Tech. They haven't been relevant in a long time. And you got UNC, and they're going to be down this year, losing Drake May, and they're still trying to rebuild the defense.
Yeah,
so NC State has a good chance to go 11-1, 10-2, and make the playoff.
Switching that conversation to North Carolina, their schedule is favorable too, but you lose Drake May and then you lose Tez Walker, who is your best receiver, and so I don't really know how successful they'll be. Mac Brown's on the way out. I think this will probably be his last year, especially if they're not successful. His problem has been he can't win. He's losing games that they're supposed to win. Like on paper, going into the game, those are the teams that they were losing to. They're supposed to beat, and they didn't beat them last year. They lost games they should have won, and so that's going to be a problem. But if you look at their schedule, depending on their quarterback play, they could win 8 or 9 games if their quarterback plays right. Now, I don't know how good that defense is going to be. Gene Chizik's gone. That was for the best. But Chip Lindsey's their offensive coordinator, so they're not going to get much done. I'm sorry, they're just not. Especially not with a top when your top 10 quarterback left. It's not going to work out. So, 8 wins is their ceiling. Even though that schedule is favorable for them, they could win 9 or 10 games if they're good. But I don't think they'll be that good.
Yeah, Chip Lindsey's that was not a good hire.
He's not a good person either. So it kind of makes it even worse when he's not that good of a head coach and he's not a very good person.
He's the only coach since Neil Brown that hasn't had won a Sun Belt championship.
Yep. It was a waste of time for Troy. Yep.
Yeah. Who's the new coach at Troy? Didn't they get a new coach this year?
He's from Notre Dame. I don't even know his name. I think they'll do a good job, though. I don't know that they'll win the Sun Belt. There's a lot of tough teams in there. So
I don't know. I mean, I like Mike Brown, and I hope he's successful. But
absolutely. It's tough.
No shot. Yeah, Florida State, the Criminals, they're gonna probably win the ACC and go to the playoff and lay an egg and become a meme for everybody. And this is why you shouldn't have been in the playoff last year either.
Yeah, which we all know if they'd have played in the playoff this past year, they'd have got absolutely rocked because they'd have been 100%. In the place Alabama and Michigan would have put it to them.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Florida State was not on that level yet. Yes, they had a great season, but they're not on that level yet.
It would have been if they had not. If their quarterback was there, they have a chance. Jordan Travis was that guy. But
he's still there?
No, he's gone.
Thought so. Last question about this, and we'll move on to baseball. Why is SMU in the ACC?
Good question. Why aren't they in the Big 12?
Why aren't they still in Group of 5?
I don't know. Rhett Lashley, man. Watch out. They could upset some teams. I don't know what their schedule looks like, but their offense is the way he runs that offense is unreal. I don't know if they could stop anybody on defense, but offensively, they could put some pressure on some teams, especially if they host them.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up right now. It's being slow. They go to Nevada, then they host Houston Christian, then they host BYU, they host TCU. Those are two
That could be
Big
4 and
12
0 right there.
teams.
They could be 4 and 0 right there.
Yeah, but they're playing two Big 12 teams, and why aren't okay? And then they host Florida State, so that's probably a loss. And then they go to Louisville, to Stanford, to Duke. They host Pittsburgh and Boston College. Then they go to Virginia, and then they host California for the last game of
Sounds
the
like
regular season.
it sounds like an 8-win year to me if they're good enough.
Yeah, 100% because of how
Down the
down
bottom
the
half of
bottom
these
of the
conferences.
ACC is.
Yeah, the bottom half of these I say bottom half. I mean, after the top 7 teams in each of these conferences, other than the SEC, it's mid. It's a whole bunch of mid
I
in
mean,
every
literally.
conference other than the SEC. The after 7 is a bunch of mid, and really in the SEC they're not that good after 8. Well, Auburn's 8, so not even 8.
No, Auburn's 10.
Auburn's 10. Okay,
Oklahoma's
so
8.
after 8, yeah, Oklahoma. So cut that off. 9 through 16, mid.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy is Auburn could upset Georgia and Alabama, um, because Hugh Freeze is a good motivator for those big games. It's the little ones like we saw
Yeah,
last year, losing to stinking New Mexico State.
yeah. They weren't even that game wasn't even on the schedule. They were playing for Alabama.
Well, one
Absolutely.
thousand
That's not an
percent.
excuse. That's not an excuse, but that's exactly what that was.
That's
He's like, I'm
exactly
putting
what
all
that
my
was.
eggs in the Alabama basket, and then he had them beat, and then yeah,
It just makes me mad. Someone asked him at media days. I was glad they asked him. They're like, "How are you going to get the kids to play, you know, good football and to play up to those smaller opponents?"
yeah.
He's like, "Well, I got something I got to figure out as a head dude. You're in your 50s. You've been head coach in the SEC twice now. You should have already had that figured out. Yes, we
Yeah,
know
it's
you
just
can motivate them for
excuses.
the big games. You got to be able to motivate them for the little games too. You got to
Yeah,
figure this out." And
yeah.
anyway, you know that, but it just drives me nuts. Drives me nuts. Anyway,
We're gonna move
um,
on.
moving
A lot of
on.
college football talk. You know, MLB's in full stride. We're in the second half of the year. There's some buyers, some sellers, some teams that we thought they were gonna be buyers at the deadline back in April are selling. Tampa Bay Rays being one. Um, Teams like the Atlanta Braves are going downhill very, very fast. Teams like the Mets are trending up. So, what are you looking at based on the MLB where we sit today? Who are your favorites to make the playoffs?
Yeah, I think the Orioles have a good shot of going deep into the playoffs. Deep into the playoffs. I think they've got a good pitching staff, but they got a young roster that they're building on quickly. They're building on quickly. I think they've got a good young roster that'll keep up the energy, and because as you get into those deep into those playoffs, they'll have high energy, and so I think they have a good shot. I mean, I think they're tied for the best record as of Wednesday. They're tied for the best record in the MLB in the AL, excuse me, with the Guardians, and the Guardians were 3-10 and 3-7 in their last 10, and so they're trending upward. Yankees, they started off hot, and now they're not doing so well. Their manager Boone, he's been making all kinds of mistakes. I saw the other day when Garrett Cole was pitching. I mean, now that they have him back, they should be dominating. And yet
Yeah,
he put two scrubs in because of the analytics instead of putting the big bombers in, and it makes his managerial style makes no sense to me.
yeah. It's
What's
about
really
his
surprising,
tenure's run its course as well. It's time for him to go.
yeah, especially if he doesn't make it to at least to the ALCS.
Yeah,
He's got to make it to the ALCS and be on the cusp of making it to the World Series, or he's gone. I'm convinced. Something interesting to look at is the Houston Astros were tied for first place back in on Wednesday. When I printed off this sheet, I mean they were down towards the bottom at one point. I think they were in third place by a lot,
a lot of
and
injuries
now
at
they're in
the end of the
first
year.
place. But I mean, the Rangers, they're back up near 500. Angels, the Angels, and Oakland is Oakland. Seattle is the only one they have to compete with, but Seattle is just too young of a team right now. But they just got a Rosarena, so that'll be interesting to see. I mean, the
They're
Phillies,
looking
they're
for a little
gonna.
fire. That's what that move does. Randy's been struggling this year, but I mean the last 3 days he's hit 2 bombs, so he's gonna bring energy. Not that they don't need any more energy with with Julio out there. But I think he's hurt anyway, so that they needed the depth. He ran into the wall the other day, hurt himself. So Rosarena will bring energy. He'll bring fire. He'll bring, and then I mean he's a good ball player. So that was a good pickup. They didn't give up much for him, so that'll be good for them. You know, the Rays, who have been big postseason players lately, are buyers or sellers at the trade deadline this year because the AL East is absolutely insane this year.
Yeah, the Central seems to be doing pretty well too.
Best year it's had in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, and Detroit, people give Detroit a hard time. I mean, they're right around 500,
Yep,
which is
that
good for
whole division
Detroit.
has played better this year, other than the White Sox.
Yeah, the White Sox are terrible. I watched a video on them the other day of how they tried to copy the Braves' success,
Yep.
and it didn't work, and they had to sell and rebuild, and they're obviously in the middle of a rebuild because they're 27 and 76 as of Wednesday of last week.
So now you look at
So
the National League. You run down the AL there. Um, the Orioles leading the East. You got the Guardians in the Central, and then out west you got the Astros. Now you look at the NL or the NL, and you look at the NL East where the Phillies are just going to run away with that. The Mets can make a push. I think the Braves are done. Coming from a crazy good Braves fan, or a crazy big Braves fan, I think the Braves are done. I don't know that they're even going to make the playoffs anymore. Um, a lot of injuries. Acuna's done for the year. Strider's done for the year. Ozzy's out for another 7 weeks. Fried's done for at least, or not done. He's out for about 2 or 3 more weeks. You know, they have the best or second best statistically, but the best starting rotation in all of baseball with Sale and Reynaldo Lopez. Charlie, I mean, we're recording this here on Friday night. Charlie gave up 7 runs in 2 2/3. He had been doing better. He's back off of his wagon again. This will probably be his last year in the majors anyway. The Braves have tried to piece it together, but they're running out of options. Their options that they've picked up aren't doing anything. So I don't see them. I mean, they could make the wild card. We are in July. They still have about a month and a half, 2 months to get it together. So I think the Mets may take that place. And then you look at the Central over there with the Cardinals. The Brewers are leading that division. I don't know that the Cardinals will make much of a push behind them unless they get hot. But that is the Brewers' division to lose. And then you go out west where the Dodgers played really, really well at the beginning of the year. Their season has tanked a little bit. I mean, they've still won 58 games, I think. They just swept.
as of Wednesday, they're 61 and 41.
Yeah, and so they're kind of going down a little bit. They did sweep Boston. They're kind of going down a little bit with the injuries to Mookie, and then Glasnow still hurt. A lot of injuries on that lineup and in that starting rotation, so they've lost a lot of games. Clayton came back the other day, or maybe come back next week. I can't
No, he
remember.
came back. He came back the other
Back
day.
last night, didn't he? Or maybe tonight. One of the two.
I'll look it up.
It was recent. It's either last night or tonight. And so they get him back. I don't know how good he'll be. He's almost 40. I feel like he's 35 or 36.
He can get you 5 innings.
So, and then you got the Giants behind them. So, really, I think the guys, if you look at the leaders in all three of those divisions, with the Phillies in the East, the Dodgers in the West, and the Brewers in the Central, they're all three going to win those divisions. That's not going to change. Now it depends on your wild card. You got the Braves, the Mets, the Cardinals, the Diamondbacks, the Giants. Like all of those teams are going to be fighting for those 2 or 3 positions. I think there's 3 positions, 3 wild card teams. And so you look at the Braves, the Mets, like I said, the Diamondbacks and the Cardinals and the Giants. I don't think there's any other teams even vying for that anymore, other than the 5.
You think Pittsburgh? Think Pittsburgh can make a push because they're over 500 now?
Yeah, Pittsburgh is around there too. So look at those 6 teams, and you're really only worried about the wild card. I don't think any of those leads will be blown first place into divisions. I think the divisions are kind of set for now, and so I don't know. When you look at playoffs, I look at the Phillies and I look at the Dodgers, and that's not even because they're easy picks. You just look, if the Dodgers get all of their guys back, which I don't know where they'll be at. A couple of those guys are shut down for the year, but they'll get Mookie back. I think Glasnow comes back. If you get those guys back and you're healthy coming into October, you're deep. I got the Phillies. I think the Phillies are going to make the World Series this year, and I think the Phillies are going to win the World Series this year because I don't think the Orioles are going to beat them. They have it when it comes to the postseason. It's all about pitching. Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, Ranger Suarez. And that's not even mentioning the back half of the rotation. Those three guys right there can win you the DS 3-0 because they can all three go 7 and give up less than 2. And then
Mm-hmm.
you bring your offense in with a plethora of lefties that can just flat out rake your whole infield. I mean, look at it. I don't even know their lineup in order. But think about this: Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Castellanos, Real Muto, Alec Bohm, Stott. There's no better lineup in baseball. 1 to
No.
9. They're literally the Braves from last year. That's literally what they are. Their lineup from 1 to 9, outside of Josh Rojas in center, every one of those dudes can rate.
Mm-hmm.
They just got rid of Christian Pache, which he couldn't do. He couldn't hit anyway. He was just a glove. And so, really, your bullpen is your only question, and they have a pretty solid bullpen. But like that's literally their only weakness, and it's not even a weakness. So give me the Phillies. I wanted to go with the Yankees, but injuries to them, and they're not playing good baseball. Which again, we're still in July. We got till September to actually figure it out. But I think it's going to be the Phillies and the Orioles. The only thing that can mess up the Orioles is youth and pitching. I don't know how consistent their pitching is going to stay. You got Corbin Burns at the top of that rotation, but right now the Phillies to me are the best team in baseball. And
Yeah.
usually the Braves are the only threat to them, and the Braves have been no threat.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it as we're recording Friday night, they just lost to the Guardians 3-1, but they're 64-39 on the year. And you got, in order, this is their batting lineup. You got Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Alec Bohm, JT Realmuto, Brendan Marsh
Brandon
played,
Marsh, yeah, he's
and then
good.
you got Nick Castellanos, and then Stott and Rojas.
Yeah, Rojas is the only weakness they have in that lineup. 1 through 8, they could all go yard anytime.
Yeah. Did you see the new additions to the Castellanos
Yes,
4
yes,
home run thing?
yep.
If y'all haven't seen that, I encourage you to go watch it. It's hilarious. He hits home runs at the most inopportune times. And I watched an interview he did on it. He was like, something bad happens everywhere in the world. Everybody hits a home run on because something bad happens every day, everywhere, anywhere in the world. You can look up something, and he's like, it just started with me, and everybody keeps finding it. But he hit a home run on the day of the assassination attempt, and then the day Joe Biden announced
Yep.
he was stepping down, he hit another one. And so, I mean, it's crazy. Anyway, that's just funny to me.
Yeah,
But like
look.
tonight,
Yeah.
the Mets are gaining a game on everybody tonight.
Yep. And
And
see
the
the
Phillies
Braves.
lost, and they're beating the Braves.
Yeah, and the Braves, they have out of 30 MLB teams, they have the 28th hardest strength of schedule. So it was set up for them to win and to gain on the Phillies, gain in the wild card, be comfortable where you're at. But see, now with the deadline coming on Tuesday, of course, we'll release this on Monday, but with the deadline coming Tuesday and we're sitting here Friday night, Anthopoulos has made no moves. But I will say this, there's no move he can make that's going to save their season. And they're not going to be 10 games better by trading for anyone. Like you would have to trade for
Yeah,
like 2 stars. So you can piece it together. You could probably get a pitcher with Friedhurt and Strider out. You can maybe get a pitcher, and then you need an outfielder to lengthen your lineup. But look, you can't get anybody to replace Ozzy Albies, and it doesn't help that Olsen is having a bad year, and so is Sean Murphy. Both of those guys had a
and
940
Riley's
plus,
having a down year.
and well, Riley's gotten better. Like Riley is starting to produce again. But Olsen and Murphy had a 940 plus OPS last year. They're both under 700 this year.
Yep.
Both under league average.
Yep.
You can't replace that.
Yeah, it's
You can't trade. You can't trade anything to replace that. Like when your own
no.
guy, like injuries are injuries, but when your own guys that like last year is like an anomaly. That's not going to happen ever again. Where they have 6 guys that hit 40 bombs or however many it was. But you lose the NL MVP, you lose the NL Cy Young favorites. You lose Albies early in the year. Riley missed a few weeks. Murphy missed like the first 50 games with a concussion, or not a concussion, an oblique. There are no missed games with a concussion. I mean, you have Michael Harris is still out. He's been out for 2 months. Like you can't pick up games, and they've still won 54 games.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean,
there's a lot of games they left out there that they should have won. Last night they should have won. Thursday night,
yeah.
dude overruns a ball. and the Mets walk it off. That's a game you should win.
Yep.
And they've just let a lot of games slip. Therefore, the Mets are the best team in baseball since June 3rd, and they're both playing like it. The Braves are playing like they've lost 5 in a row, and the Mets are playing like the best team in baseball.
Yep. Yeah, it's 8-4 right now.
Yeah,
in the top of the ninth. Runner on first. They were pinch hitting Ramon Laureano for Kelnick.
Who lost the game last night?
Who lost the game last night? Yeah, chance at redemption right here. I doubt he gets it, but
No.
Duvall's hit 2 home runs tonight.
Yep, Duvey. And if he can get hot, like, look, to be honest, he can hit all the home runs he wants, and they can trade him on Tuesday and get something. But they can't get rid of a bunch of guys because they have to have depth for other injuries. They just signed a second baseman the other day to replace Ozzie, and he had stitches under his fingernail because he was fielding a ground ball and it hit his finger.
Nice.
Busted his finger open.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, he struck out.
Yep. But that's
anyway,
how that it shapes up. Do what?
It's going to be tough, but like the Mets are going to gain a game on Philadelphia and a game on the Braves.
Well, see, you're not even worried about the East standings. You got to look at the wild card and see where they are with the Braves because they may take over by the end of the series. They'll have taken over for the top wild card spot from the Braves.
They'll be tied with the Braves right now because they've lost. No, they'll be a game ahead
in the wild card.
Period.
Oh yeah,
because as of right now they're 54 and 48, and the Braves are 54 and 47.
Yeah,
they'll be 55 and 48.
They'll be a game and a half ahead of them.
Yeah,
or half a game ahead of them, I should say.
Yeah. So Riley's about to strike out. Yeah. Let's go to standings on this. Yeah, that'll be half game ahead, I think.
Yep. So the Braves will have to make up ground, and they'll just have to win games. I don't know what Anthopoulos is going to do to be able to close that gap. He's not going to make too big of moves because he's not going to compromise next season. But they're in a good spot next year if they can get all their guys back healthy. They're in a good spot for next year. I think that's what Anthopoulos has turned his mind to, because you're not going to win. You're not winning the East. You could make the wild card, but something's got to change.
Yeah,
mindset's got to change.
I think it's going to be interesting. So the wild card in the American League, the Yankees are 3.5 games plus, and the Twins are a game and a half, and the Royals are right there at the line, and then the Red Sox are a game out.
I would love to see the Royals in the playoffs. Bobby Witt in the postseason would be electric.
Here's what's crazy to me: the Tampa Bay Rays are sitting at 500 right now, 4.5 games out of the wild card, and they're selling.
You're not.
They're selling.
They're done. They're done. It's going to be the Yankees. The Yankees are going to take one of those spots, and then you're going to look at the Twins and the Royals to make those other ones. I'm not looking at the standings on the computer here now, but I don't really think you're going to see much shakeup in the standings in those divisions in the AL either. Maybe in the East, the Yankees could make a run. If the Yankees get hot, they could. They've got the roster to do it. They've got the lineup to do it with Judge, but they got to get their guys back healthy. There's a lot of injuries on that Yankees lineup and in that staff. If they could get healthy, they could make a move.
I agree. But looking at the National League, the wild card race is very close right now. As it stands right now, the game hasn't gone final yet. But the Braves are a game above the line for the wild card, and the Mets are a half game back, and then the Padres are right at that line. And then the Cardinals are a half game back. Arizona's a full game back, and then the Pittsburgh Pirates are a game and a half.
Well, I got it confused. It's the Padres that are higher, not the Giants. The Giants are way down there.
It's the Padres. They're 5.5 games.
Yeah, I said the Giants earlier. I meant the Padres.
I mean, but yeah. So after the Pittsburgh Pirates, they're a game and a half back, but the Reds are 4 games back. San Francisco and Chicago Cubs are both 5.5 games back from the wild card, and the Rockies and the Marlins are way on down there.
That's why, as we sit here on Friday, there's not been much movement here at the deadline, because there's so many teams sitting around that 500 line, like the Cubs, like usually at this time, teams like the Phillies, the Orioles, the Astros, they're getting players from like the Cubs and the Reds and the Pirates, but the NL race is so close in the wild card, those teams still have a chance.
Yep. But here's where you break it down. Like the Rangers are surging right now. They're 5 games back, and they're on a 5-game win streak. But see, here in the NL, the Braves are on a 5-game losing streak, and they're only a game up in the wild card. They're about
Yep.
to lose tonight. They're going to drop to a half game back. They'll probably be tied with the Padres. Maybe. They're on a 5-game losing streak. The Padres are on a 5-game win streak, and the Mets are on a 4-game win streak because they beat the Yankees twice, and now they beat the Braves twice. Probably about to be a 5-game win streak. So you can't go on streaks of losing. The Braves have already done this once this year, and then they fought back to get up back up above. But the injuries is what's killing them, really. So if you're Alex Anthopoulos, I think you've mentioned this a minute ago, do you just kind of punt on this year and go with what you got and just, okay, Chris Sale is having a fantastic year, probably going to win the Cy Young, but he's 37, 38 years old. Can he have another year like that again?
We'll see.
He came into this year thinking, go ahead.
Think about this. The Red Sox are paying every bit of the money on Sale's contract this year. He's playing for free.
Yeah.
And
the game just went final. So, I mean, contract, it makes sense.
I 100% you believe you hold on to Sale, because then you look at it from this perspective, and Sale is in an opportunity now, if health is not an issue next year for the staff, that he's not even the guy. If Fried is going to be a free agent if the Braves don't hit him with a contract, which they should. He can't walk. You can't let Freddie and then Dansby and then Fried walk. Dansby's not having that great of a year. You can't let all three of them walk. So look, you got Strider, Fried, Lopez, Sale. Sale's not a bad fourth or fifth option.
No, he's not. And
he's the one option right now because everybody's hurt.
Right.
But
when you get one more, if you add one more to that rotation, you got a stout. I mean, you've already got a stout rotation with that. But can you count on Sale at his age to have that big of a season? Another season like this, because
I don't think so.
I mean, he's old and he had something to prove this year. Everybody thought he was washed. Even you said at the beginning of the year, he's an old arm with nothing, and he's getting 7, 8 strikeouts a game this season. Can he back that up? I mean, we're getting close to the grind, and he's still doing it, but he's going to be a year older. Can he keep it up? I think he can, but that's something you got to think about, and you can't. You got to think about the future.
I'll say it this way: is they don't have to. He doesn't have to be this guy next year. Like, do you want him to be? Yes, but if he sits there with an ERA less than 4, and he's not walking a bunch of guys, and he's not losing you games, you're okay with it. He's not going to be Chris Sale this year. He's not going to be a Cy Young favorite next year. Like, he's not. But he can be good enough. Because Strider, if they get Strider back 100% healthy next year, and Fried comes back on a new contract does a lot for some people.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Lopez, who will be back in his element with starting pitching because this is his first year back to doing that. He can be the fourth option, and he doesn't have to do that.
So, starting pitchers right now, you got 5. You got Sale, Fried, Morton, Lopez, and Schwellenbach. Let's see, Chris Sale, 2.68. Max Fried, 3.08. Charlie Morton, after tonight, 3.92.
Yeah.
Ronaldo is 2.12, and then Schwellenbach's 4.62. But that doesn't tell the full story because the last few games, Schwellenbach has been killing it.
Yeah.
So he was up above 6, and now he's down below.
So think about
below
this.
5.
New contract and help. If it's all perfect next year, it's Strider, Fried, Lopez, Sale, and Schwellenbach.
And if you can keep this bullpen,
that is a rotation that would be the best in the National League on paper. Coming back, that's the best rotation. Because Schwellenbach has a 5 in his second year in the league. Perfect.
Yep. And if you can keep this bullpen, who has been locked down for pretty much all year.
Yep.
I mean, you look at your number one option. Who's your number one option out of the bullpen?
You look at Pierce Johnson and Joe Jimenez.
Chavez
ERA, but he's not the number one option. When it comes to close games, you're going to see Minter, Johnson, and Jimenez.
But according to the stats, he's got 44 innings.
Because
he's got a 1.83.
He's a long guy.
Yeah, but he's got a 1.83 ERA.
Yeah. I mean, he's been really good, but he's not your number one option, is what I'm saying. It's like
and then you got Dylan Lee.
If it's 4-3 in the 7th or the 8th inning, he's not coming in to pitch. And he's retiring this year anyway, so you're not getting him back next year.
Really?
Yeah, he's done.
Okay. I mean, a 1.83 ERA with 44 in the 3rd innings is not bad.
because they pitch him 2 and 3 innings every time he pitches,
Right.
and
And
like,
then
but that
Dylan Lee with a 1.98
yep,
ERA.
that has
Uh,
fluctuated since a couple last week because he's been really good too. So you're looking Lee, Jimenez,
Bummer.
Minter, and then you got Pierce Johnson. Those 4 guys
Yep.
for sure. Daysbel Hernandez has not been bad. They just brought him back up today, but when he was here about a month ago, he was fine. So I mean,
Yeah.
they can bring
He's
back a
got
lot of stuff.
9 2/3 innings, and he's got a 0 ERA.
So I mean,
Uh,
they're set up pretty good for next year. They could make a move to keep their wild card position. I don't think they'll be They won't sell at the deadline. They're not going to move anybody crazy. So we'll see though.
I think a lot of Braves fans are going to be mad because they're not going to make any kind of. I don't think they're going to make any kind of heavy moves. They
No.
might try to get a starting pitcher and be ready for him next
Well,
year.
Ian Anderson, who had Tommy John, just made another rehab start in Gwinnett tonight, and so he's making a nice push to come back. So they may even hold off on starting pitching and see if they can get him going and get another arm up there. And he can
That
get
makes
4 or 5
sense.
innings. And
Anyway, so you think it's going to be Baltimore and
Philly.
Philadelphia in the
Who you
World
got?
Series?
What do you think?
I think it's Baltimore or the Yankees against the Phillies in the World Series, just based on what I've seen this year. But the Yankees are in a decline right now.
Yeah. Okay. Out of the teams in the National League that look like they're going to make the playoffs, who stands the best chance to beat the Phillies in the postseason? Would you say the Dodgers?
Right now,
or just period? Like
the
period.
Dodgers. The Dodgers have the best chance.
Yeah, because I don't see the Brewers doing it. I don't know that the Braves will even make it. I don't see any of those wild card teams doing it. I would like to see, like, I hate the Mets, but I would like to see how they finish this year. Because if they finish out hot, like, it all depends on who gets hot. I just, like, when we
It
talk
always
about
does.
that,
But see,
break, my thing is, I want to see that break. The break that the Braves have gotten so many years, and the Phillies haven't gotten, and they've come in and just absolutely murdered the Braves in the postseason. I want to see what the Phillies do when they get that break, and a team like the Mets or the Padres come in to the bank, and they've been on that grind, and you haven't. I'd like to see it because that's what's going to happen.
I'm with you.
The Phillies are going to bet are for the best record in the National League, so they'll get home field advantage. They'll get the full on break. They'll finish with the best record, and then they'll get a team like the Mets or the Padres that'll come in there. We'll see. But if I'm gonna tell you right now,
I'm 100% with you.
If the Yankees are playing really good baseball at the end of the year, and Baltimore finishes as the best team, and they get a hold of the Yankees, you could see Baltimore go out in the ALDS. Because Garrett Cole's going to get Game 1, and then Luis Hill, who's going to probably win the Rookie of the Year for the American League. Well, no, Wyatt Langford's probably going to win the Rookie of the Year from the Rangers. But and then you got Carlos Rodon. Those 3 guys could win you a game, and they could beat the Orioles.
I agree with that.
So,
I would agree with that. Yeah, Mariners are up 10-0 right now. Goodness gracious, it's the White Sox though. It's going to be interesting for sure. The Dodgers, if they get healthy, I think they'll make a good run. But I think the Phillies have the best record in baseball right now. If they can stay healthy,
stay that way.
I think they'll give it a good shot. But I want to go back. I should have looked it up before we started. But I'm curious to see how many. When was the last team that had the best record in baseball actually won the World Series? Because if memory serves me correct, I mean, you go to the Braves. I think the Rangers did it last year. They come in at that wild card spot.
The Nats did it before the Braves, and the Nats were in the wild card. It's all about who gets hot.
Yeah.
Who cares about the best record when it comes to the postseason? That doesn't matter anymore.
Right. I agree with you. That's what I'm saying is like you were talking about that break. If you're in the wild card, you're playing all the way through and you're getting hot and you're getting that momentum. You're getting more playing time. Yep. Getting a break doesn't help any of that. And the Braves, they saw it happen to them 2 years ago. So last year they were doing live practices. They were having fans at the practices trying to keep the atmosphere going and everything. And they went.
Yep.
And so I think this year is going to be a wake up call for the Braves.
I'm still kind of hoping we see the Braves kind of flip-flop around and make something happen. I've just been saying that since April, and it hasn't happened. So I'm about done with thinking that they will figure it out and turn it around because I feel like a couple of guys have checked out.
I think several of them are.
I think the injuries made it worse. So
I agree with you. but it's going to be interesting to see. I think they're kind of punted on this year. I think they're going to move. I think they're going to come back next year with a chip on their shoulder, and I think everybody's going to be hitting 250 or above,
Same
minus
as last
Adam
year.
Duvall. And I think everybody's going to. But here's what you need if you're the Braves: you need everybody to be on a contract year, because Freddie Freeman on a contract year at MVP level season got a massive contract somewhere else. Dansby Swanson chose to go somewhere else. I think Freddie Freeman was lied to. Dansby Swanson chose to go somewhere else for family reasons. Fine, whatever. I'm not bitter anymore. And you don't want Fried to walk. And so it's going to be interesting to see.
But I'm more I say positive. I think that there's more of a chance that Freed walks than Freddie and Dansby. I didn't think either one of them were going to leave, and they both did. I actually have a feeling that if Freed gets an opportunity to go to the Dodgers, he'll go. If he can go back home to California and play for a contender, he will.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. I
Braves,
didn't know he was from California.
yeah, he played in California. He's from there, so we'll see. There's more of a chance that I think that Freed walks than it was with Freddie and Dansby, and I think if Freed, I mean, Freed has had a really solid year again. He had a rough start and kind of kicked it back into gear, and he's been the
I
best
mean, he
pitcher.
made the All-Star game, but it wasn't because of March and April.
No,
It's
but it
because of
wasn't.
his May, June, and beginning of July.
Yeah. So he turned back into Max Fried there towards the end
Yeah.
of the first half. So if they get him back and he pitches pretty well, they'll have a chance. They just gotta weather the storm, but this storm's been going on for a couple months, so we'll see.
Yeah, and once they get Acuna back and once they go back to full roster, they're the probably second
And I
best
would I would
team, all
expect
around
them to
team.
make a couple of free agent signings in the off season to kind of help
You
a
have
little
to.
bit so that you're
You
not
have
in this
to.
situation again. But he's not big on spending money on free agents. He hasn't since he's been there. So we'll see though.
No. Well, it's I think it's the same. I think it's kind of the same thing that the Dodgers went through back in 2021 when the Braves won. They had probably the best roster in the MLB that year, but they got depleted and they made it to the playoffs. But when it came time for the playoffs, the Braves were hot.
Yeah,
And I mean, you had Eddie Rosario and Jorge Soler, two unknowns pretty much, go off. I mean, Eddie Rosario is batting 188 this year. I think Jorge Soler is batting 230 something, which is
he's
not
playing
great.
better. The Giants have moved him back into the leadoff, and
I
he's
saw
hitting the
that.
baseball better. So,
I saw
and then you
that.
got Jock.
But
Jock was one of those signings that brought energy and that could hit the baseball, and that's what they need now. They need somebody to come in like an Arozarena who just went to Seattle. Like you need somebody there that's just gonna bring some fire. I don't think they're gonna do that. I don't. It's not the same as 2021. Um,
no,
so,
it's
but
just it's
that's
going
what
to
that
be
was. It
interesting to
was
see.
a perfect storm for players that they brought in, and
Yeah.
so. But
I
we'll
mean,
see how the rest of the season goes.
he's probably the best GM in the league. I know everybody thinks that guy from Los Angeles, I don't know his name, but he
Yeah,
keeps getting all these signings because he can afford it. Atlanta's not the same kind of market. They don't have the same kind of money. They don't have Dodger money. And to build what he has off of with what he has, it's going to be interesting. Like that Matt Olson signing, I mean, it hasn't proven well this year, but I mean,
last year it
that
did.
was a massive signing because it matched the home run production up until this year. I mean, even Freddie's having a down year for Freddie. He was batting
But he's still batting
288.
290,
Yeah, 288, which is a down year for him because he's normally up above 305.
and the
Um,
season's not over yet though.
no, it's not. And Ozuna's got his average back up to 308 when he was down around 298 a couple weeks ago. So, I mean,
See, the
baseball is a
thing with
game of
Matt
ebbs and
Olson, and we're
flows.
about to finish this up here, but the thing with Matt Olson is the with the swing that he has, he's all or nothing. He's not a big base hit guy. He's going to strike out a lot if he's not hitting the baseball. Unfortunately, it's been that way all year. He hasn't found that swing. He's been a little bit more consistent the last couple of days. He had a couple multi-hit games. He's not leaving the yard though. A lot of strikeouts. Riley got off to a rough start, then he got hurt, and so he's kind of brought himself back a little bit. Ozuna's been there all year, and then Ozzy really, even though he's been hurt a little bit, he really hadn't done anything. Acuna wasn't doing anything either. It was kind of just a major drop off. So, kind of a rough season. You have those though. So next year, I think they're
Yeah,
built the way that AA's built the roster and signed the guys. They'll be in position to be in position next year. So, but
I
yeah,
think so. Yeah, I think that's a good place to put it. We had a lot more to talk about with USA basketball and the Olympics, the opening ceremonies being today, and we'll probably talk more NFL next week once camps have really taken off because they started this past week as well. So make sure you turn in next week. Watch us then on YouTube at the Miller Brothers Podcast, and then we're also on Twitter at Miller Brothers Podcast. I think it's at Miller Bros _pod on Twitter. So make sure you follow us there. Stay up to date. We're going to be here pretty much every Monday, Lord willing. Unless something drastically comes up, we'll put it out on social media if we can't get it done. But thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. It's the best way to help us out, get us out in front of more people. And we'll see you next time. Appreciate it.
See you guys.